That's not bad.
A big and tasty for just $1? How do you do it? What's your secret?
Have you ever wondered what the presidents of the United States like to eat? The truth is that presidents may have different policies and ways of ruling, but one thing they all had in common is a love of food. Each president has had a favorite dish, showing us the kind of personality and upbringing they had or the times in which they were in. Today, we'll have a look at every president's favorite food during their presidency.
Not hot cakes, hoe cakes, basically a cornmeal pancake.
George Washington. If all you think you know about George Washington is him being the first president of America, well, you need to think again. People have read about his military genius and abilities, but all that aside, his favorite food were hoe cakes. This was only cornmeal pancakes on a plate and a side dish of butter and honey. In the morning, he had hoe cakes with a cup of tea, which proves how simple early American life was. John Adams. John Adams was the kind of man you would call a New Englander through and through. Indian pudding, cornmeal, molasses, and spices were his favorite dish, and according to Adams, this thick and hearty stew described the essence of New England. Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was noted as a man of cultured inclination. He introduced many foods to the U.S., including his favorite macaroni and cheese. During his stay in France as an ambassador, he developed a liking for pasta and cheese, and at Monticello he was reported to have installed a pasta maker. His love affair with mac and cheese showed a desire to put European civilization in with American cuisine. James Madison. If you've ever heard anyone say that someone was the father of the Constitution, they may have been talking about James Madison. He had a simple favorite, Virginia ham. Madison loved this southern dish for its saltiness and opulence, which was often presented at state dinners during his presidency. The dish was inspired by his own southern roots, and also the fact that pork is what would be a staple food of early Americans. James Monroe. James Monroe loved fried chicken. It was his favorite, and soon turned into a purely American favorite. Monroe would have it served with rice or cornbread, fresh green beans and carrots, and he was like many who enjoyed fried chicken from childhood. John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams was a big fan of fresh fruit, especially apples. A native of Massachusetts, he had a preference for the New England produce. In terms of food, he preferred simple and healthy foods that were different from what his predecessors used to love. Andrew Jackson. Leather breeches was the favorite of Andrew Jackson. It's an old-fashioned southern dish made out of dried green beans, which could be prepared with pork fat and boiled inside. Being a man of the people, he loved this simple but comfortable dish, and it could be kept for many days. It must have been one of the reasons why a lot of people from the South enjoyed it. Martin van Buren. Martin van Buren was the first Dutch-born president who started after the Revolutionary period. He appreciated traditional Dutch dishes, his favorite being boiled codfish that was commonly accompanied by root crops. It demonstrated that while he was president, he didn't allow his heritage to take a backstage, and during that time there were also an extent to which Dutch cuisine was a factor in early American cooking. William Henry Harrison. William Henry Harrison may not have lived through his presidency, but he enjoyed squirrel stew. Born a frontiersman, he had a simple life, which you would expect of anyone for such a preference. William was an ideal in the sense that he fitted into the category of a man whose culture was linked to frontier-style cuisine. James K. Polk. Polk was the rather plain country boy from Tennessee and fond of cornbread and country ham. Despite the fact that these were more or less comfort foods, you would often find them on his dinner table. He had a simple political disposition, going by the fact that he oversaw the enlargement of the United States. He must have enjoyed simple dishes, as simple as he was with politics. John Tyler. John Tyler had a weak spot for Indian pudding. Many Southern-style foods filled his table, and the dessert used a simple molasses sweetening that was irregular. This is one of those delicious slow-cooked puddings that were served warm and accompanied with ice cream. The pudding was quite popular in early American homes. James K. Polk. Polk was the rather plain country boy from Tennessee and fond of cornbread and country ham. Despite the fact that these were more or less comfort foods, you would often find them on his dinner table. He had a simple political disposition, going by the fact that he oversaw the enlargement of the United States. He must have enjoyed simple dishes, as simple as he was with politics. Zachary Taylor. It's something worth knowing that Zachary Taylor, aside from his passion for leadership, had a special love for Creole cuisine, especially fried rice balls. He worked for a long time in the military in the South, and from the type of foods that he loved, you could infer he enjoyed food that was common in the region in which he served. Millard Fillmore. For a man who loved the finer things in life, Millard Fillmore's choice of beef stew was what you would call perfect. The delicious meal was always served hot, and he had the sort of background that could be described as humble middle class. Franklin Pierce. Franklin Pierce was a New Englander who loved clam chowder. The regional dish of clams, potatoes, and cream demonstrated how much of his boyhood home state of Wisconsin that Pierce had brought with him to the White House. James Buchanan. James Buchanan is the first and only U.S. president that was a bachelor in office. People knew that he loved cabbage. Cabbage could be sautéed and accompanied by corned beef or even steamed, and people enjoyed laughing at his simple and mundane pleasures, some of which were ordinary for the average person. You can't mock a man for clinging on to the heritage of his early years. Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln was known for humble beginnings, and that's reflected in his simple tastes. He had a favorite dish, apple pie. He loved this American dessert, and often it would be served during gatherings of the Lincoln family. A regular man on the street could easily connect, and they would also enjoy the comfort food after a busy day. And after a day of attempting to unite the nation, you can imagine Lincoln sitting down to a big slice of apple pie. Andrew Johnson. Andrew Johnson was a Southerner from Tennessee who loved to eat Hoppin' John, a plate of black-eyed peas and rice commonly served together with pork or ham. The dish of the southern states became famous all over the U.S. and attests to the fact that Johnson grew up on a farm, steadily representing the southern culture from which he came. Ulysses S. Grant. General Grant was the last residing commander of the Union forces during the Civil War, and he took a special liking to rice pudding. It was best described with simple yet fulfilling. Grant had a utilitarian disposition and a rather domestic food preference. During his presidency, it was custom to see it prepared at the White House. Rutherford B Hayes. Now, you may know someone who has a sweet tooth, but you probably never dreamt of a president having one. Rutherford B Hayes enjoyed a dessert so much that his favorite food was cornmeal pancakes with maple syrup. This was a typical farm food for someone with Ohio roots. James A. Garfield. Another little-known fact is that James A. Garfield served less than 2 years in the office, and he liked squirrel soup. A typical frontier meal, it proved his origins in rural Ohio, a soup made from squirrel meat boiled in vegetables and other parts of plants. His presidency may have only been 7 months long, but his down-to-earth love for the dish is a testament to his nature. Chester A. Arthur. Arthur was not only interested in fine accessories and being a dapper dresser, he loved mutton chops. Mutton was a common thing amongst nobility of the time. It could be boiled or baked or even roasted. The chops were common with sauces alongside vegetables, and many elegant dinners were made by him during his presidency in the White House, and the meal was usually present at the dinner table. Grover Cleveland. You probably recognize Cleveland as the man who was president for 2 non-consecutive terms, but you may not be aware he enjoyed corned beef and cabbage, a lunch of the hard-working common man and not a president, but it revealed the man who was practical, blunt, and somewhat rough. Benjamin Harrison. Benjamin Harrison loved corn, and this was a common product in the Midwestern states of America. You could have it creamed, roasted, or in the form of cornbread or even mashed. Corn was a symbol of his American Midwestern heritage and the closeness to the nation's agricultural heart. William McKinley. McKinley was the 25th President of the United States and known to have enjoyed his hot lobster salad, which is quite a rich and creamy choice. You would see it in Victorian dining, especially in the upper class of the Gilded Age, and it was fair to say that he represented the 19th century lifestyle. Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt was a rough-riding, adventurous personality, and he enjoyed fried chicken. His love for fried chicken fit his image as both a man of action and energy who was unafraid to get his hands dirty. William Walker Harding. One of life's simple pleasures was food, and given his record of being the heaviest president, it's not surprising that Harding indulged in large portions of food. Harding's favorite food was steak. It was bad enough watching most people have something to say about the president who loved to eat, but the man had no shame in showing just how much he could fill. And though he could eat a lot, it didn't hinder his ability to lead the people. Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was a Southern-born intellectual who had a simple favorite, chicken salad. Chicken salad provided something different and not so serious during times of tense discussions of politics. Warren G. Harding. Warren G. Harding was a man of simple tastes. He loved chicken pot pie. Commonly known as chicken or vegetable pie, it was covered with pastry and filled with tender pieces of chicken in a sauce that was thickened with a hint of creamy gravy. Calvin Coolidge. Known for being frugal and quiet, Coolidge had a surprising favorite, apple pie. He enjoyed the traditional dessert and was known to be a simple, frugal president that wanted to uphold tradition. Apple pie was a common feature in the White House when he was there. Herbert Hoover. Herbert Hoover was the only president who had a weakness for sweet potato with marshmallows. Sugar and spice were two things readily found in this dish, and it became a popular comfort food in the Great Depression. You can hear clearly the echoes of Hoover's Midwestern childhood. Sweet potatoes were the childhood memories. It was also expressing the impact that pure foods had, especially in a time of poor economic situation during the Great Depression. Franklin D. Roosevelt. Grilled cheese sandwiches were Franklin D. Roosevelt's favorite. This rather plain but unpretentious meal showed the need for comfort food during some of the most challenging times of American history. Grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup became associated with FDR, and people could resonate with the president during a difficult financial time. Harry S. Truman. The next time you want your steak well done, remember the name Harry Truman. Truman was famous for a straightforward personality. He loved a good steak prepared well. He was a man from Missouri and wanted his steak well done, which would be coupled with mashed potatoes and gravy. Dwight D. Eisenhower. Eisenhower was a World War II hero and two-term president who loved beef stew. He often cooked his own stew using beef, vegetables, and potatoes, reflecting his own self-sufficiency. The dish not only satisfied his appetite, but mirrored his leadership style as being practical, strong, and enduring. John F. Kennedy. Kennedy was one of the most charismatic presidents in U.S. history who had a love for New England clam chowder. As a native of Massachusetts, his fondness for the seafood soup showed his deep connections to his roots. It was frequently served at the White House and soon became an iconic dish during his presidency. Lyndon B Johnson. Johnson was a true Texan who loved chili, and his favorite version was a no-bean, all-meat chili that was common with people in Texas. Johnson's fondness for the spicy dish was all people needed to picture his larger-than-life personality. This was also confirmed by his focus on American resilience during turbulent times like the Vietnam War. Richard Nixon. There were a lot of things on the news about Nixon, but one you may not have seen was his favorite food, cottage cheese with ketchup. Since he was known for unusual eating habits, Nixon would enjoy this combo for breakfast or lunch. His love for cottage cheese showed his attempts to maintain a healthy diet, though pairing it with ketchup would raise many eyebrows. Gerald Ford. Gerald Ford was a Michigan native who loved pot roast. This slow-cooked, hearty dish was a staple in his Midwestern upbringing, often served at the White House, and you could often see it on his table. Jimmy Carter. A true Southern gentleman, Jimmy Carter's favorite food was grits, a Southern staple made out of ground corn. Carter hailed from Georgia and often enjoyed his grits served with cheese and butter for breakfast. Ronald Reagan. Reagan was a Hollywood actor who became president, and he had a well-known sweet tooth with a favoring for jelly beans. Reagan's love for jelly beans began when he used them to help quit smoking, and during his presidency, you would find jars of them all over the White House. Seeing jelly beans today may even remind you of the Reagan administration. George H.W. Bush. George H.W. Bush's favorite food was pork rinds with Tabasco sauce, a crunchy and salty snack that showed his love for simple, savory foods. His love for pork rinds was mentioned in the media, and he embraced his preference for this distinctly Southern snack during his time in office. But, fun fact, he also hated broccoli. Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was the perfect person to call the king of fast food. His love for fast food was widely known during his presidency, and as a man who frequently indulged in cheeseburgers, fries, and barbecue, Clinton's appetite for rich and flavorful foods became part of his public persona. However, after heart surgery, he switched to a vegan diet reflecting a more health-conscious approach in his post-presidency years. George W. Bush. George W. Bush was a Texan president who loved cheeseburger pizza. The fun dish combined two American favorites, cheeseburgers and pizza, and his love for the dish reflected his laid-back, relatable style, along with his connection to comfort foods of his home state. Barack Obama. Barack Obama's favorite food was nachos. Known for his love of Mexican food, he frequently mentioned his love of nachos, often enjoying them with his family. This choice reflects his easygoing personality and his love for sharing casual cuisine with friends and family, making nachos a staple in the Obama household. Donald Trump. Donald Trump's favorite food was the classic American McDonald's Big Mac. Known for his love of fast food, Trump's preference for the Big Mac, along with other staples like fries and a Diet Coke, became symbolic of his unconventional style as president. His love for this food reflected a desire for simplicity and convenience, even in the highest of office. Joe Biden. Joe Biden's favorite food is ice cream, and all throughout his political career, he's been vocal about his love for the dish, often seen enjoying it at public events. His preference for the sweet treat reveals a warm and approachable personality, and his ability to connect with people in lighthearted and relatable ways. Which president has the same favorite food as you? Be sure to let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss a memory in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.